We publish industrial technology magazines like Efficient Manufacturing Magazine, which is EM, and Automation and Digitalization Magazine, which is AND. So it gives me great pleasure to welcome all of you to today's webinar, which is on manufacturing operations post-COVID-19 from survival to revival. And I would like to welcome all of you. Now, ever since the coronavirus has hit us, it has affected almost every business that we can think of, including the manufacturing industry. It has heavily disrupted demand behavior, supply behavior, and then it has affected the capabilities of companies to deliver goods. And then manufacturers are quite in a fix about the lockdown. But then there will be a time when the lockdown will have to be lifted, when businesses will have to go back to work, when manufacturing factories will have to start functioning normally again. So that is going to be the real test to start to revive and to start functioning sturdily again. And that is exactly what our webinar is going to address today. Our speakers and presenters are going to talk about surviving and reviving post-COVID-19. Then there will be a panel discussion on this topic of manufacturing operations post-COVID-19 from survival to revival. Then the industry veterans would be deliberating on the short-term and long-term implications and consequences of the COVID-19 pandemic crisis, the immediate actionable growth strategies, the approach towards deployment of advanced technologies in the current situation, and the mantra for survival and revival. Panel discussion, which will be on manufacturing operations post-COVID-19 from survival to revival. Today's discussion will be moderated by Mr. Shekhar Jitkar, who is the Chief Editor, EM A&D India.
Good afternoon, everyone. Hope you are all doing fine during the lockdown, and also in the post-lockdown, you will have a lot of challenges in front of us. So with COVID-19 evolving at a very unprecedented speed and scale, manufacturing companies are grappling with its immediate impact as both their production, supply chain operations are being disrupted, and their customers as well as the suppliers' own operations face similar challenges. So this is having an exponential effect down the whole supply network, hitting the manufacturing organizations with a lag. And with the economic uncertainty, the COVID-19 pandemic has further added a layer of complexity to the challenging environment. So in this scenario, adjusting operations in real time calls for a new approach to everything we do, be it the product we manufacture, the processes which we use, the safety measures we follow, the technologies which we deploy, the way we respond to market requirements, and the way we communicate, and most importantly, the manner we manage the workforce in the current situation. So in this context, we are organizing this panel discussion today on the topic of manufacturing operations post-COVID-19 from survival to revival. We have been listening to lots of webinars, some articles, some podcasts, and even on LinkedIn, lot of posts on how to survive. But here we do take the opportunity of discussing on revival also after the survival. So the industry veterans in this panel discussion would be deliberating on the short-term and long-term implications and consequences of COVID-19 pandemic crisis, the immediate actionable growth strategies, the approach towards deployment of advanced technologies in the current situation, and the mantra for survival and revival. So with this, I would like to call upon today's esteemed panelist, Mr. Indradev Babu, who is the Managing Director of UCAM and the President of Indian Machine Tool Manufacturers Association, Mr. T.K. Ramesh, who is the Managing Director of Micromatic Machine Tools, Mr. Shailesh Sheth, who is the Corporate Advisor and also the past President of IMPMA, Mr. Sridhar Dharmarajan, who is the Executive Vice President and Managing Director, Hexagon Manufacturing Intelligence India, Ms. Sonali Kulkarni, who is the President and CEO of Fanuc India, Mr. Raviraghavan, who is the Managing Director of BFW.
Yeah, I will come to Mr. Raviraghavan now. Since all of you have started your manufacturing operations partly or partially recently, so I would like to ask you what would be the new normal for best practices going forward in the manufacturing sector? And would you like to recommend any new SOPs like standard operating procedures while running the business operations, probably with lesser number of people, and that too who have been constrained by the much needed social distancing norms?
It's going to be a new thing that all of us are starting to learn. Okay? It's something like a race without a finishing line. So we don't know when it's going to end. and how it's going to end. So we are trying to learn how to do that. I don't think there are going to be any standard, practices that would be relevant for everybody. But it would be a
That's true.
nice mix of, one has to look inward, and everybody will have his own solutions for themselves. So what at this point I'm trying to do is understand what's COVID positive for me and COVID negative for me, which means that what am I good in, what am I weak in, what should I take as a positive for me, what I should take as a negative for me, and see if I can get away from those weaknesses and things that are not strong for me, or something that I am not into, and can I practice that. It's going to be a combination of, say, manage a social distancing and at the same time be very productive. If you have a space in which you have 100 people and now you're going to use only 30 people, 33 people, 40 people, it's going to be expensive. So costs are going to go up. Simple mathematics. But then can you improve your productivity overnight 3 times that you are able to cover that cost? It's not going to happen. So it definitely is going to hit the margins. It's going to hit the productivity. But people will have to find a new way of doing things. Somebody will have a lot of opportunity for automation. Somebody may not have. So even some things that look very interesting today may not look interesting tomorrow. Something that we may want to do may not be able to do that. So everything that will have a much higher value going forward. I look at it this way. In the short run, yes, all of us will be under pressure, individually or as companies. So costs will be a major thing. We will go for something that's cost effective, that's cheaper. I mean, the cost of living and the cost of lifestyle, right? So we'll give away things which we cannot, it doesn't really affect our life. Similarly, people will give away products, give away things that they may not need for the minimum production. But I see in the medium and long term, people will premium the value in anything, the product or the service. Because now you have a space of 100 square meter, you have to produce something which has a triple the value of that which you were getting earlier. So either you automate it or you do a lot of engineering in that, or you add a lot of value to that product which gives more value to the customer. That may be the only way to go, but that can't happen immediately. It will take some time. So in a years, 2 years, 3 years perspective, I think that's the way everything, not only our product or machine tools or things like that, everything will go. Right. So that's my take on this whole situation.
Yeah, I think that was very well articulated by Mr. Vijay Kalra also. Thanks, Mr. Kalra, for sharing that. It was very practically oriented. So Raghwan, I have another aspect to it. Like there was a question to Mr. Kalra as well, that while adopting or investing in new technologies like automation or digitalization, so any like manufacturer may think that the demand is less, so there are no demand for their products or technology solutions. So why should I invest in automation technology or digitalization technology? So what should be the approach towards these technologies?
Just elaborating on Sridhar's point, that will answer your question as well. I think COVID is like a catalyst, right? People were into digital in some form or the other, but it was with a huge amount of push. I mean, people didn't really see much of an incentive in that, things like that, right? Actually, this may help companies to move into digitization, value creation through digitization in a much faster rate. People will think of different ways of doing, and I think that is going to bring the big change in the way it is going to happen. Now, why should people do it when already the markets were down 30%, and again this will bring down, so everybody's going to sit down 50%, 60% extra capacity. The way they will look at it would be more sensible now. So let's take a line. You have 5 machines. People will not automate the whole line. People will look at a bottleneck machine, bottleneck process, bottleneck thing. and try to automate so that the whole efficiency of the factory or the line or the product comes up. So people will also innovate ways to adopt this. Now, what this has also taught is the dependence on labor, at least if they are skilled, is going to be now more and more difficult. We can't really be so open that yes, everything is available, people are easily available, we can adopt and get anybody and use them. That's not going to happen. I think the scare for some more time on the for them to be closer to their home, to the lives, to things, is going to continue. So people will use automation there to be more reliable to their customers, that you can depend on me, I'm not depending on so many other factors. So automation will happen. But as I said, I think the premium will be on these things now, not on only on the quality of the product, but the quality of the reliability of the whole supply. It's not on the reliability of the product. But how much can I mean, like it was being talked earlier, even just before the COVID, that companies that will have a very strong supply chain will be the ones which will succeed. Not only the strongest company, but the company which will be stronger in front, that is, have a great relationship with the customer, but also have a great relationship with the supply partners. And that's where digitization will help. So for example, we went on to create a subsidiary which connects not only the customer BFW, but BFW supplier as well. Exactly what Sridhar was showing. Connect the top floor and the shop floor. Connect outside of the customer and inside of the company. And CFTs, which were cross-functional teams, which are till now within the company to solve a problem or do an innovation, now will become intercompany. That means in that CFT, you will have a customer, you will have a supplier, etc. Who may be geographically very far off from you. Then how do you connect them and how do you transact with them? That's where the digitization will happen. So we will find newer use and applications of digitization. The same vanilla application that bring a automation, put it on a machine and run may not work.
Okay. Yeah, I'll ask the next question to Mr. Shailesh Sheth now. You have been a veteran in the industry and you have seen the industry operating and ups and downs in the industry for a long time. But I believe this kind of crisis must be the first time in your lifetime as well. So what should be the attributes of a winning plan for navigating the industry post-pandemic? What should be the immediate actionable growth strategies and how to leverage them?
So coming to the question, I think everybody agrees that we really don't know what kind of scenario we are going to look at the other side of COVID-19. And therefore, I have 3 or 4 very specific things to say, and I would come straight to these because I think we otherwise would run short of time. The first point I want to make is a little controversial, debatable statement, which I would say is watch your cash flow, not your profits, right? I think the next 1 or 2 years, stay liquid and stay viable is going to be more important than profit utilizable for purposes of growth. So if you get business opportunities which are not on the profitable parameter acceptable to you, but it gets your business going, it gets the wheels of your factory moving, you have to think that should I therefore move mountain to mammoth? Why migratory labor has happened is because there's too much of investment in certain pockets. Take example, machine tools. Gujarat, Maharashtra, Karnataka comprise more or less 80-90% of the machine tool production, right? And why not have some of these manufacturing go to UP and Uttar Pradesh and Bihar and Orissa and even Bengal or Chhattisgarh, areas where there is labor available? Then migration doesn't have to happen. Dispersal of industry on a broader national scale will get driven by this COVID, whether we like it or not. This will happen. To what extent we can move maybe foundries, maybe heat treatment shops, maybe lower end, lower technology or non-automatable processes to some of these areas by establishing satellite units is something that is obviously company specific. Each company has to work out. But in short, what I'm trying to say is that even to manage the enterprise where you are, maybe taking more skilled people, maybe employing more technology, maybe employing more automation, fine. You can maintain that as your core, but you have to be flexible and do some out of box thinking with regard to how you want to manage your enterprise. I think time has come now that machine tool industry, at least the top 25, 30 companies are of a size where they can afford to be multi-location companies instead of being concentrated on a single location. This is something a machine tool industry needs to bring the neck out of the sand like an ostrich and look at the world, wider world in India. And the last point I want to make is that the changes are going to happen. And I think somebody mentioned that the changes are happening so fast that you don't know what is like a very typical saying: if you don't know tomorrow's news today, you are out of the business yesterday. So if the changes are going to happen so fast, it essentially means that your response has to be equally fast or even faster. Because what you as a CEO are supposed to do is to anticipate that change, or at least to some extent anticipate the broad contours of the change, even if you don't know specifically where it is going to be hit, and make your organization flexible enough to adopt that change and agile enough to respond to that change in a very, very rapid manner. If you don't do that, the change will overpower you. And I think COVID has given us that example. Countries that were slow in responding to this COVID, who were complacent, have been overwhelmed by what happens. And I think the most classic example recently is that of Russia, when they sort of really thought that they are going to be the country that is going to be saved out of the whole thing. Now suddenly the whole scale is going to be spiraling up. But anyway, coming to small and medium enterprise, let me just close by summarizing that the key things are going to be flexibility of your entire business model and all your policies. Nothing should be taken as sacrosanct. Everything should be reviewed and reevaluated in terms of the new context. Respond with great amount of speed and agility. Make sure that your future growth takes into account multi-location enterprise, and finally, don't lose sight on your cash flow. More or less every morning, afternoon, and night, look at your cash flow. That these are the four messages that I thought that would be relevant to you, all of you. Thank you.
Yes, that's very good. Very well drafted comments from you, Mr. Sheth. Due to time constraint, we need to stop here now. So I would like to thank each one of you for your time and making the discussion interesting and interactive. Like as Mr. Babu said, my questions are very well connected. The idea behind that is we are going to write a story on that. So we should get a proper flow in that. That was the idea behind it, to get the questions correct. Okay, so I will. So I will just take a couple of questions from the audience. Yeah, everyone, there are 3 to 4 questions who are asking about the recent package announced by the government. How will it really help the MSME as well as the corporate sector to come out of this situation? So anybody would like to comment on that? As there are 4 to 5 questions only on this.
Mr. Shailesh can answer, I think, for all of us.
Yeah, Mr. Sheth.
I think, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yes.
We can.
Yeah, okay. I think first of all, to make comment before the whole package is announced is like jumping the gun. A lot of politicians are doing it. I don't want to be a part of it. I think they still have one more tranche to happen tomorrow. While the earlier part was going on, I was watching on my mobile phone the finance minister announcing the third tranche on agriculture. But the way things are being spanned out, it is very clear that this is not just something to fight COVID. This whole thing that is being unfolded before us is something much more than just a fight against COVID. So I think we have to realize that this is a much broader vision that is being unfolded, and not just something that will help us for a year or two to fight COVID. So that is one issue. Second issue is that at least the MSME part is fairly largely clear. In my opinion, I think the measure about guaranteeing the loans to the MSMEs, I think is going to go a long way in removing the liquidity issue applicable to MSMEs. Now, the question mentioned earlier in the beginning about the ability of the bank to loan the money to an MSME based on its evaluation of the risk factor is something one cannot take away that right from the bank, right? I mean, the bank will have to make a judicious evaluation of its own risk. We don't want another set of NPAs to develop and then start debating about bad bank and what have you. So subject to that, I think there is going to be quite a bit of liquidity coming in to MSMEs with the Make in India initiatives, with the local, local, whatever that slogan is. The fundamental issue is that develop products locally so that you don't get into a situation where, because of, particularly in this example, because of China not able to supply raw material and components, your value chain is completely disrupted. So I think this is to be seen in that context rather than seen in the context of being in introverted country or things like that. So I think all these is going to open up new opportunities for our MSMEs. The issue I again and again want to repeat: are our MSMEs ready to exploit those opportunities? Are they flexible enough? Are they willing to make the required changes? You heard digitalization of processes, doing teamwork, individual being more is important as much as the organization, right? Customer centricity, the entire value chain, whole supply chain will compete with another supply chain. All those mentioned by various panelists are all equally valid and important. But what does it all mean? It means that at the end of the day, the CEO or the entrepreneur of the MSME will have to make those decisions. And for that, he will have to have an open mind and a great amount of flexibility to be able to do this. So with that, I think I want to conclude to say that my personal opinion, this tomorrow the infrastructure part is still awaited, so we will have to wait and see what happens tomorrow. But overall, I think whether some parts are included, some parts are not included, sufficient, not sufficient. We have done 10%, somebody has done 13%. I don't think these debates are anything more than theory. There are economists on both sides of the spectrum who speak for and against. We will never come to any conclusion on this. Save the fact, how does it impact me? And this we will know only maybe a few months down the road, not something immediately. But I am, over a period of time, I'm optimistic that the tail will definitely turn upwards one day. And that day will be sooner than later.
Correct.
Thank you.
Correct. Yeah, I will just take the last question. There is a question which is saying how the companies, whether it's corporate or MSME sector, they can help each other down the line in the whole supply chain to help each other to come out of this situation in terms of, say, technology help or cash flow management or financial norms or sharing of labors. So how that that approach can help in both SME as well as the corporate sector.
As the compassion, came in so much during COVID, I think that will go to businesses as well. I think what is going to happen is in some of the industries, this is happening, which is called co-opetition. You will have a cooperation and also a competition. And you see the electronic goods industry, you make a product, you give it to your competition as well as you work together on a common project. Let us take the LED screens, for example. Okay, one guy makes it, but the TVs, he competes with that. So you will cooperate in a much different way going forward. You will compete with a purpose. That means it will not be a win or defeat between a competition, but it will be a win-win between a company and a customer, right? That's been the success of consumer durable products. And in doing that, what happened is they narrowed down. There were very few people who focused on very few things and became experts in that. And the whole industry gained. So you have the best of LED touchscreens coming in, done by few people, used by everybody, right? So the amount that went into innovation, getting into, so the time was spent not on fighting a competition, but in developing newer things. This change may happen. Labor skills may get shared between companies. Can we have a common pool of, say, electricians, and anybody, you, me, or XYZ picks up, uses that for its own this thing, instead of each company developing its own skill, right? So these are the changes that will happen and will happen very fast, because costs will become very, very expensive. And when you narrow that down, people will spend time more on making that a great, if there's a great electrician available for me or for you, right? Our end product is going to be good. I mean, then we are not competing on having a good person, but we'll be competing on having a good product, engineering that product, etc. So I believe these are some changes that's going to happen, will happen very fast.
So we'll take the other questions offline. If you have any more questions for any of our panelists or presenters, you please feel free to send them to us, and we can have them answered via email. Now, ladies and gentlemen, we have one last poll, for which, again, like the other last two polls, you will have 30 seconds to answer. So can we please have the poll on screen? The question is, how do you think the current situation will affect the adoption of advanced technologies like digitalization in manufacturing? Your options are: adoption of advanced technologies will increase, or adoption of advanced technologies will decrease. You have 30 seconds to give your choice. So your time starts now. The results are that adoption of advanced technologies will increase as 96%, while only 4% of people say that adoption of advanced technologies will decrease. So thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen, for being a part of this poll. Mr. Raviraghavan, he told us that they are trying to understand what they are good at and what they are weak at, and see how they can get away from these weaknesses and practice more. Have a good day. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.